Ever watched a movie that flopped so hard it destroyed careers, only to realize decades later it predicted everything? The 1970s were packed with philosophical weirdness and directors gambling their futures on insane visions. But hidden beneath Star Wars and Close Encounters were bombs that actually aged better than the hits. These weren't just box office failures. They were prophecies nobody wanted to hear. Today, we're counting down 10 sci-fi box office bombs from 1970s that were actually great. The films that lost millions, got buried by studios, and somehow became the most influential science fiction of the decade.
Gravity's at maximum, Dan.
My God, I think it's got us. We're starting to tumble.
The Black Hole, 1979. Disney spent $20 million trying to compete with Star Wars. They hired the best effects team. They created gorgeous production design, and they made the darkest, most violent film Disney had ever produced. Then, it barely broke even and got forgotten as Disney's expensive failure. The Black Hole followed a crew investigating a spaceship at the edge of a black hole. They discover a mad scientist who murdered his crew and turned them into robot zombies. The film ends with a psychedelic journey through hell itself, with imagery more disturbing than anything Disney attempted before or since. Critics were confused. This was Disney making science fiction with implied death, robot violence, and existential horror. Kids found it too scary. Adults found it too silly. The cute robot sidekick, clearly designed to sell toys, couldn't save it. The box office was disappointing despite massive marketing campaign, but time has been kinder to The Black Hole. John Barry's orchestral score is now recognized as one of the best in science fiction. The production design influenced countless space films. The ambition to make something genuinely dark under the Disney banner deserves respect, even if execution was flawed. It's Disney's most interesting failure. Quintet, 1979. Robert Altman made a science fiction film about a deadly game played in frozen post-apocalyptic world. Paul Newman starred. Critics destroyed it with unprecedented savagery. Box office was catastrophic, and it became Altman's most hated film, a reputation only recently starting to change. The entire film takes place during New Ice Age, where survivors play Quintet, a board game resulting in real murder. The rules are never fully explained. The world building is deliberately minimal. Altman shot everything through diffusion filter, making the image foggy and dreamlike. The pacing is glacially slow. Characters speak in monotone about meaningless survival. Altman intentionally made Quintet alienating and oppressive. He wanted viewers to feel the cold, the despair, the emptiness of existence without purpose. Audiences in 1979 absolutely hated it. They wanted Star Wars adventure or alien terror. Altman gave them slow, confusing, depressing art film disguised as science fiction that tested patience. The film failed spectacularly, but remains fascinating as ambitious failure. Altman using sci-fi to explore existential void is unique in his filmography. The atmosphere is genuinely oppressive and memorable. Modern reevaluation recognizes its artistic ambition, even if execution remains divisive. It's not enjoyable, but it's definitely unforgettable. Rollerball, 1975. United Artists spent $9 million on Norman Jewison's corporate dystopia about ultraviolent sport used for social control. They expected blockbuster. They got modest returns that failed to justify the budget. Rollerball underperformed badly compared to studio expectations and became classified as commercial disappointment. James Caan played Jonathan E., the greatest rollerball player who corporate executives want to retire because he's become too individualistic. His rebellion is simply continuing to play a game designed to prove individual effort means nothing. The corporations escalate violence, trying to kill him on the court while teaching the masses that no one person matters. The film predicted corporate fascism with disturbing accuracy, corporations replacing nations, entertainment as population control, individuals crushed by systems that view them as disposable products. The violence was commentary on media desensitization that audiences missed completely. They saw action film. Jewison made political warning. Rollerball's prophecy becomes more accurate every year. Corporate power, superseding governments. Athletes treated as commodities. Increasing violence in entertainment. The 2002 remake was disaster that proved the original's superiority. What seemed like sci-fi dystopia is gradually becoming reality. The film bombed because audiences weren't ready for its message in 1975. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Harlan Ellison's post-apocalyptic black comedy about teenage survivor and telepathic dog was made for under $1 million and barely made it back Don Johnson before Miami Vice. A talking dog smarter and more moral than the human, an ending so dark that audiences walked out furious. The surface world is brutal survival, where Vic searches for food and women while Blood the dog provides sardonic commentary. Then Vic discovers underground society that preserved 1950s American values in most twisted way imaginable. The pastel suburban nightmare is more horrifying than the wasteland above. That ending where Vic makes unforgivable choice shocked everyone. The film was too cynical, too weird, too misanthropic for mainstream 70s audiences, too dark for drive-in action fans, too low budget for art house crowds. The ending became legendary and divisive. Ellison's vision refused to offer hope or redemption in the apocalypse. Most people hated it. But A Boy and His Dog influenced Mad Max, The Road Warrior, and the entire Fallout video game franchise. The buddy dynamic between human and telepathic animal became template. The satirical underground society was borrowed constantly. Box office failure became foundational post-apocalyptic text that every wasteland story since owes a debt. THX 1138, 1971. George Lucas's directorial debut was catastrophic box office failure that nearly ended his career before it started. Warner Brothers hated the film so much they re-edited it without Lucas's permission, cutting 5 minutes. The butchered version bombed anyway. Lucas wouldn't get another chance until American Graffiti saved him. THX 1138 depicted underground dystopia where mandatory drugs suppress all emotion. Sex is illegal. Reproduction is controlled. Surveillance monitors everything constantly. Robert Duvall played THX 1138, who stops taking his medication and remembers what it means to feel. His escape to the surface becomes journey from chemical control to human freedom. The film was too slow, too cerebral, too weird for 1971 audiences. Warner Brothers wanted commercial success. Lucas delivered philosophical meditation on conformity and pharmaceutical control that predicted our current reality with disturbing precision. The studio destroyed it and buried it quickly. But THX 1138's influence is enormous. The surveillance state, the social credit system, the drugs keeping population compliant. Lucas warned about everything we built and called it dystopian nightmare. We created that world anyway. The film bombed in 1971 and became prophecy by 2024. That's not failure. That's vision nobody wanted to see. Slaughterhouse-Five, 1972. George Roy Hill adapted Kurt Vonnegut's novel about Billy Pilgrim, who becomes unstuck in time and experiences his life non-linearly. Childhood, war, death, alien abduction, all simultaneously. The non-linear storytelling confused audiences. The anti-war message was unmarketable. Box office was modest disappointment. The film jumped through Billy's life without warning. One moment he's a prisoner of war in Dresden. Next he's living in zoo on alien planet Tralfamadore. Then he's back to childhood. So it goes, repeats after every death as Billy experiences all moments at once. unable to change anything because everything that will happen has already happened. The Dresden firebombing sequence was devastating and uncomfortably honest about Allied war crimes. The alien abduction played as both real and possible coping mechanism for trauma Billy couldn't process. The film trusted audiences to handle complexity and ambiguity. Most audiences weren't interested in 70s. Vonnegut approved the adaptation despite its failure. The film captured his fatalistic philosophy and time-warp structure faithfully. It's forgotten now, despite being one of the best literary adaptations of the decade. Slaughterhouse-Five deserves rediscovery as ambitious science fiction that treated war trauma seriously, instead of heroically. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. David Bowie played an alien who crashes on Earth, becomes a billionaire selling advanced technology, and slowly destroys himself with alcohol, television, and human corruption. Nicholas Roeg made fragmented, non-linear film that bombed spectacularly everywhere it was released. The studio cut 20 minutes trying to make it coherent. It didn't help. The storytelling jumped through time without explanation. Reality and hallucination blurred together. Bowie's performance was barely human. Perfect for Alien, but alienating for audiences expecting traditional narrative. Critics called it pretentious art film nonsense. Box office was disaster. The film seemed destined for complete obscurity. But The Man Who Fell to Earth aged into masterpiece. Bowie's portrayal of innocent, corrupted by humanity's worst impulses is devastating. The meditation on addiction, isolation, and capitalism, destroying everything it touches, feels more relevant now than in 70s. Roeg's visual style influenced Blade Runner, Under the Skin, and every art house sci-fi since the director's cut restored Roeg's vision decades later and vindicated his fragmented approach. What seemed incomprehensible in 1976 is now recognized as brilliant. Bowie never acted better. The film that failed commercially succeeded artistically in ways audiences wouldn't appreciate for decades. That's the definition of ahead of its time. Phase 4, 1974. Saul Bass, the legendary graphic designer who created iconic movie posters and title sequences, directed his only feature film, Ants Become Super Intelligent and Coordinate Attacks on Humanity with Mathematical Precision. Paramount looked at it, panicked, and butchered the ending completely. The psychedelic 10-minute sequence showing human evolution guided by ants was cut entirely. The studio marketed it as B-movie creature feature. Bass made philosophical science fiction about evolution and communication disguised as horror. The ants weren't villains. They were next step in Earth's evolution. Humans were either obstacles or potential partners in something transcendent beyond human understanding. The theatrical cut confused critics, and bombed the original ending was considered lost for 40 years. Bass died in 1996, never seeing his complete vision restored. Then, in 2012, the footage was discovered and reintegrated. Suddenly, Phase 4 made sense as the visionary film Bass intended. The restored version reveals what Paramount threw away. The ants achieving consciousness and pulling humanity into symbiotic relationship. Bass's only film influenced Alex Garland's Annihilation and cerebral sci-fi for decades. But in 1974, audiences wanted Jaws sharks, not intelligent insects. The film bombed as misunderstood creature feature and became recognized masterpiece decades too late. Zardoz, 1974. Sean Connery wore red diaper, thigh-high boots, and braided ponytail. He worshipped giant floating stone head that vomited guns and ammunition. This was his first major film after leaving James Bond. Critics called it career suicide. Box office was catastrophic. And it's the most insane science fiction film of the entire decade. John Borman created post-apocalyptic future where immortal elites live in protected vortex while barbarian exterminators hunt humans outside Connery. Play Zed, who penetrates the vortex and discovers the immortals are bored, suicidal, desperately wanting death they can't achieve. The imagery is completely deranged. The philosophy is dense. Every frame is bonkers. Audiences expected action-adventure and got psychedelic meditation on immortality, class warfare, and societal stagnation. The floating head, the red diaper, the casual nudity, philosophical dialogue delivered by actors in absurd costumes. Nothing made traditional sense. 20th Century Fox had no idea how to market it. The box office reflected that confusion. But Zardoz is unforgettable. Midnight screenings kept it alive. The bizarre visuals became iconic even among people who never saw it. Underneath the insanity, Borman explored legitimate ideas about what immortality does to individuals and societies. You can't defend Zardoz as good, but you also can't forget it once experienced. Silent Running, 1972. Douglas Trumbull, visual effects genius behind 2001, A Space Odyssey, directed his only science fiction film. Bruce Dern plays botanist maintaining Earth's last forests in space stations orbiting Saturn after Earth became ecological wasteland. The budget was $1.3 million. The box office barely matched it, and Trumbull never directed another film. The corporation orders all stations destroyed and crews return home. Freeman Lowell murders his crewmates and flees into deep space with the last forest and 3 maintenance drones he names Huey, Dewey, and Louie. It's intimate character study about environmental destruction and one man's desperate act to preserve nature when humanity abandoned it. Silent Running bombed, and Trumbull returned to visual effects work, never directing again. But the film influenced Moon, Interstellar, and every lonely person in space movie since. The practical effects using real plants in space station sets are gorgeous. Dern's performance carries it with minimal dialogue. It's criminally underrated environmental sci-fi that predicted our climate crisis decades early, Hollywood's loss that Trumbull never got another chance. Which 70s bomb shocked you most? Which failure became your favorite film? Which one are you tracking down tonight after learning it exists? Drop your answer in the comments below. Hit subscribe for more forgotten film history and beautiful failures. And smash that like button if you finally understand these weren't bombs. They were visions the world wasn't ready for yet. Thanks for watching.